Hello, my name is Alexa Thomas. I am a perinatal fitness coach. Welcome to week 1, day 1 of our birth prep labor guide. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go through all the movements so that you feel confident that you're doing all these movements correctly so that we can prepare for baby. Alrighty, let's get started. Okay, so the first movement we're gonna do is called a pelvic tilt with a diaphragmatic breath. We're gonna start with a nice neutral spine, so you can have your feet a little bit spread apart or you can bring them close in together. I personally like to have them a little bit spread apart so that I have a firm base. Then what we're gonna do is we're going to place our hands just right underneath baby right here, just to support baby, because in the 3rd trimester, your belly starts to grow and baby gets just a little heavy. So we're just gonna go ahead and do a little hold to alleviate some of that low back pressure. We're gonna take a big deep inhale, expanding our rib cage 365 degrees. And then we're gonna do an exhale, exhaling all the breath out. But really important, before we just go straight into the inhale and exhale, I want you to think about your pelvic floor. When you're doing that big inhale, expanding that rib cage, we also want to think about our pelvic floor. We want to lower our pelvic floor, so just by relaxing. So we're going to inhale, lower that pelvic floor, relax that pelvic floor. And then as we're doing that, we're going to add that pelvic tilt. So we're going to arch our low back, pressing our glutes backwards, creating a real big arch in that low back. Once we're here, we've expanded the rib cage, we've lowered the pelvic floor, and we've tilted our pelvis. Now what we're gonna do is we're going to exhale our breath. As we're exhaling our breath, we're simultaneously going to be hugging baby in and up and bringing our pelvis back to neutral. Now, a few common mistakes that I see is that, I will turn to the side so you guys can see this, is that a lot of people, they'll get the first part of the movement correct. So they'll inhale, expand, lower that pelvic floor, arch that low back, and then they'll exhale, pulling baby up, exhaling the breath out, but then they will kind of tuck that pelvis. And that's not what we want to do, because if we're tucking our pelvis, we naturally want to sink our rib cage down, and that puts a lot of stress on baby here. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to lift baby in and up, so that when baby comes back down, gravity is placing pressure on our pelvic floor to drop the baby a little further into the pelvic inlet. That's what's so important about all of these exercises, is that we're trying to help prep our pelvic floor and our bodies for birth. Not strengthen our pelvic floor, we're trying to prep our pelvic floor. We want to strengthen once we're postpartum. Okay, the next movement we're gonna do is an asymmetrical cat-cow. Now, I wanna tackle the mistakes that I see women make, is that they try and overcorrect. And I know the exercise has cat-cow in it, and naturally when we're not pregnant, we really arch our back and really, we have that anterior pelvic tilt and then that posterior pelvic tilt. We really emphasize that. However, when we're pregnant, we don't want to be doing that. We want to make sure that we're arching that low back, tilting that pelvis, but then we want to come to a neutral spine. We don't want to overcorrect because we don't want to crunch baby in. So I will go ahead and show you what that looks like. So here, we're going to take our yoga block, place it under one knee, get into a quadruped position, making sure we're relaxing that pelvic floor as we're inhaling, arching that low back. After that inhale, we're gonna exhale, lift that pelvic floor up, and then come back to a neutral spine. What we don't wanna do is, again, inhale and exhale all the way up. That's traditionally how a cat-cow is. But again, we want to come back to a neutral spine because we don't want to put any extra stress on baby. Inhale. A few important things to remember is that we want to stack our shoulders on top of our wrists and our hips on top of our knees. So if you have a mirror, I really enjoy using a mirror when I'm first starting out a new exercise just to make sure that I'm doing this correctly. So inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And that's how you do an asymmetrical cat-cow. Okay, so the next movement is going to be an internal external chair rotation. However, when I'm in my third trimester, I don't really like to use my bands too much, just because already when I'm here, right, baby is growing, and so naturally my legs are going outwards to make room for my growing belly. And so it's really hard for me to sit like this with the band and then do an internal external rotation. So what I like to do is I just go a little bit wider with my stance. And again, you can hold on to something. I'm not pregnant right now, so it's a little easier for me, but I recommend that you do it near something that you can hold on to. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna hold on or stabilize yourself, and then you're gonna go ahead and internally and externally rotate one foot. I like to do it on the stability ball because again, it just adds another element of trying to engage my core as I'm doing this. If your core is not really strong or you haven't been trained through pregnancy with these specific movements, I would recommend definitely sitting on a more stable platform like a chair. So hold on, make sure that you have baby supported, lift that leg that's gonna be moving, and all we're gonna do is internally, externally rotate. So you can do it with the band around your ankles, or again, when I'm in my third trimester, I just like to do it without and just focus on my core stability and my breath. Alrighty, try that exercise and let me know if you have any questions. This dynamic 90-90 stretch is perfect for when you're pregnant or you're not pregnant. It's one of my go-to staples just for hip mobility. So what we're gonna do is we're going to get into a 90-90 position. And what that means is you wanna create a 90-degree angle with your front leg and with your back leg. Start anchoring the point or anchoring at your hips. So if you notice, my left hip, my left knee are in alignment. And then as we go out, creating that 90-degree angle, my left knee and my left ankle are aligned. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna come to a neutral spine and then check our back hip. So our right hip should be aligned with our right knee as the anchor point, and then our right knee is gonna be in line with our right ankle. And so that is gonna create a nice 90-degree angle as well. So from there, we wanna square our hips, and as you can tell, I'm a little tight, but we wanna square our hips, neutral spine, and then we're gonna draw down. So that's what a traditional 90-90 looks like. However, when you're pregnant, what I want you to do is I want you to pull the front leg out a little bit more so it's not quite a 90-degree angle so we can make room for baby. So go ahead and just modify it by pulling that knee outwards. And then again, baby's gonna be here. So just come down as far as you can. What I see a lot of women do is they'll arch this low back to try and get down further. That's a no-no. We don't wanna do that. What we wanna do again is keep that chest tall and just come down as far as we can. If this is the extent of our mobility and our flexibility at this point in pregnancy, this is all we need to do. So just come here, count to 5 seconds, relax your pelvic floor, and then from there, we're just simply gonna rotate and switch to the other side. And again, adjust if you need to. So like I always need to adjust to pull this foot out, take a second, and then I go down, I stretch for 5 seconds, and then we go back to the other side. So the reason I like to do it is going back and forth and not just going down, going back up, and then going down, especially when I'm in my third trimester of pregnancy, is that you are rotating your hips, right? So you think about the pelvic floor like this, hip socket in our pelvis to get baby to kind of like wiggle down into the pelvic inlet. That is with all of these asymmetrical movements, that's really the goal, is to get baby to descend down into the pelvic inlet. Okay, the next movement we're gonna do is a seated diaphragmatic breath. So you should be pretty familiar with this movement because we've done diaphragmatic breaths in basically all of our exercises. So what we're gonna do is we're just simply gonna be seated on the birth ball. Inhale, expanding that rib cage 365 degrees. relaxing that pelvic floor, and then exhaling, contracting that pelvic floor, drawing that breath up through that spine, exhaling through our mouth as we're contracting baby in and up. Ready? Again, you notice I'm not crunching down. I'm essentially just drawing baby in and up. The goal of this is to bring baby up and down, applying pressure to that pelvic floor, creating that mind-muscle connection with our breath to prepare us for birth. So before we get into the birth ball positions, I want to teach you how to do a diaphragmatic breath, because we're going to be doing a diaphragmatic breath with every single movement. What we're going to do is we're going to inhale, expand our rib cage 365 degrees, lowering that pelvic floor. From there, we're going to exhale all of our breath out, starting from our anchor point at our pelvic floor, drawing our breath in and up out of our mouth. As we're doing that, we're lifting that pelvic floor, contracting and engaging our core muscles. And what we're focusing on here is not just our rectus abdominis, is our transverse abdominis, our deep core muscles, because those are going to be the muscles that help control our breath as we're giving birth and in our postpartum period. So big inhale, exhale, draw that pelvic floor up, exhale all the air out of our esophagus. Okay, so now that we have our diaphragmatic breath down, what we're gonna do is go into our first birth ball position. This is simply just gonna be pelvic circles. What we wanna do is make sure we have a nice wide stance, because we wanna create room for baby. Place our hands somewhere where they're comfortable, hands, knees. I personally like knees because it allows me to come to a neutral spine a little easier. And then we're gonna start out with just doing simple hip circles. Hip circles. And then we're gonna switch. And I know when I was in my third trimester, I had a hard time with really coming forward here. It kind of hurt. So make sure that you're just doing everything to what you can do at that moment. A lot of women can come in a little bit more if they're a little smaller, but if you're a little bit bigger like I was, I gained 40 pounds in my pregnancy, I could only come to neutral, and that's perfectly okay. Next exercise is gonna be a figure 8. So we're gonna come forward, side, and do this nice and slow, because the goal of these exercises is to move and create space within the pelvis so that baby can descend further into that pelvic inlet. And a figure 8, I'll post it right here, is essentially just going around and around. And again, give yourself grace. It doesn't have to be perfect. The next exercise I'm gonna do from the side so you can really see it is an anterior posterior pelvic tilt. So again, nice neutral spine. I like to do the diaphragmatic breath with this just because it feels good for my body. And if you want to get a little bit more advanced with this movement, you can create an internal, external rotation with the knees, creating a little bit more movement in that pelvis. So what you're going to do is you're going to, as you're going backwards, you're going to draw your knees inwards, lowering that pelvic floor, exhaling all your breath out as you're bringing your pelvis forward, and then opening up those knees. And what this is doing is it's creating this opening in your pelvis to try and get baby to kind of descend a little bit more into that pelvic inlet. Okay, the next exercise we're gonna do are just simple side to side swings on our birth ball. Just lifting that hip up, and we're gonna really drop our pelvis down and then really lift that hip up. And what we're doing is very similar to our other asymmetrical movements. We're creating space in that pelvis. And again, with any of these movements, make sure that you modify them to where you are at, depending on how big or how far along you are. Alrighty moms, if this was helpful for you, go ahead, share it with a friend who's pregnant, or just simply like it because this helps my channel grow, and then I'll be able to provide more content like this for you guys.